Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Jim Rogers of Rogers Holdings, a man who needs a little introduction. Jim, welcome.
I'm delighted to be here, Max. It's been a while.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jim, you've made your reputation really going back a few years as an international investor. I remember back in the early days of the Barron's Roundtable, you always came in with these great ideas from countries around the world. And this is really where you wrote the book Investment Biker, actually traveling around the world and looking for value. So I wanted to talk to you about what's happening in the geopolitical front, the world scene. A headline from Bloomberg News around the time of the G20 read that China and Germany step up as U.S. retires from world leadership. That's the headline. Your thoughts about this? Is the U.S. receding and China ascending, and is there a relationship between China and Germany that is emerging, Jim?
Well, first, Donald Trump, on his first day, withdrew from TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which immediately threw the Pacific Ocean area into China's hands. When America basically left, everybody had to turn to China, and China, of course, turned to them. So, yes, we're seeing that America is pulling out of the Pacific in some ways. At the same time, America put sanctions on Russia for a variety of reasons. So that's pushed the Chinese and the Russians together. So many people are getting very involved with it. And the Persians, the Iranians are also being forced into the arms of the Chinese by America. So you have just about everybody on the Eurasian continent turning towards the Asia, now towards China right now. And yes, everybody is, the U.S. is withdrawing, or they're withdrawing from us, or both.
Now, I've observed, and get your thoughts on this, that it seems as though Germany is being pushed into the arms of Russia. Can you speak on this a little bit?
No, of course. They got to trade with somebody, and the Russians are right there. The Russians have a lot of natural resources, and China. The Chinese and the Germans, Germany is the second or third largest trading country in the world. So it's natural that they're looking for new partners, and the Russians are right there. The Russians need the Germans. The Chinese need the Germans need them.
But that's an incredible rebalancing of NATO, potentially, if you see what I'm driving at there.
No, Max, you go back and look at any period of history, and you see that when these things start changing, it snowballs, and a lot of things happen. I don't want to get too worried here, but before the First World War, all sorts of changes started taking place, which were revolutionary at the time, but they weren't so revolutionary. We had a big war as a result, and we're seeing a lot of changes like that take place again. Let's hope it's not a war.
Okay, now, Jim, a few years ago, you got a lot of press. You were telling hedge fund managers to trade in their Lamborghinis for tractors, and that agriculture would be a huge play. Certainly in Russia, that's been correct. You went very long Russia a few years ago. That market's doubled. That's been a huge winner. And that's where the agriculture play is really blossoming. Is that still on the table? Is that still happening?
Big time, big time. One of the best. I expect bad times to happen in the next few years, 2 or 3 years.
We're going to get to that.
But agriculture, I'm optimistic about agriculture no matter what happens in the world for a variety of reasons, but especially in Russia. We put sanctions on the Russians, so they had to buy their food from themselves. They couldn't sell to other people, so all this food in Russia is now booming. I mean, agriculture has it's had a huge boom in Russia, which is getting better and better. I'm a director of a Russian fertilizer company. It's wonderful for them.
Yeah, I look at the Russian economy, and of course, when critics of Russia say that it's a gas station posing as a country, I mean, Russia, the energy sector is something like 9% of GDP. Yeah, my numbers could be wrong, you can correct me. But if you look at the U.S., if you look at their healthcare industry, which is 16 to 17% of GDP, I see you nodding. Your thoughts?
Well, I cringe because, yeah, our healthcare in America is 16% of net gross national product. We don't have the life expectancy in the top 25 in the world. We're spending far, far and away more on healthcare than anybody else in the world, and we're not getting anything for it. That's why I was cringing. It's all going to lawyers and bureaucrats and who knows what. You and I are not getting anything. Somebody else
I'm
is.
subsidizing a lot of people.
Yeah, we are.
I'm playing full boat. I'm not on Medicaid, and I'm paying the full Obamacare rate, and it's quite steep and getting higher, up 24% a year. They say there's no inflation, Jim, but how is that possible if these prices are up 24% a year?
Well, not just healthcare, entertainment, education. If you tried to go to college these days, oh my goodness, you can't believe how much college costs.
Now, why are those numbers so misstated? Is it because the Fed's trying to keep interest rates low to keep the bonds rolling on those insolvent banks?
Max, you believe governments? What's happened to you? You believe you get your investment advice from the government? Oh my goodness, poor guy, what has happened? You've become deranged.
You mentioned it's kind of tough times ahead for markets, and I guess the U.S. and we've talked many times about the dollar and the fate of the dollar. It looks like a great short, but it has been resilient. Are we now on the cusp, do you think, of more of a dollar weakness and kind of this new world order emerging and market turmoil?
Well, I expect market turmoil in the next couple of years, but one result of market turmoil is the dollar is going to go higher because people are going to look for a safe haven. Now, they think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven for historic reasons, and because there's not much else these days. So I own a lot of U.S. dollars, expecting the turmoil to drive the dollar higher. I hope, what I plan is, when the dollar gets overpriced, it may turn into a bubble, depending on how bad the turmoil is, and people flee to go somewhere. My plan is to sell it and buy something else. You see how easy it is to get rich?
Yeah,
I just made you rich
I've
right
been following you for 30 years, and I think you're responsible for my first million, I think, back in the 80s.
Oh, my goodness.
One of your recommendations.
I didn't get any of it.
Yeah, no. I tried to buy Bitcoin when it was $5, if you recall, Jim.
Yes. I wish I were smart enough to have bought Bitcoin.
I was trying to return the favor. You
I wish I'd been smart enough or dumb enough to buy Bitcoin. It wouldn't have mattered. It's gone up a great deal.
Well, let's talk about China for a second. Of course, you live in Singapore. You're in Asia. Your daughter is an award-winning, prize-winning, accomplished speaker in Mandarin. It's fantastic. Congratulations on that. Your thoughts on this Chinese One Belt, One Road policy? It seems like they're investing in infrastructure, while in America and in New York, the train system is falling apart. There's no investment there. Your thoughts?
You fly into JFK Airport in New York, you're immediately in a third world airport. And you get in a third world taxi and you ride on a third world highway to a third world five-star hotel. It's not often that geography changes, Max. When the Spanish and Portuguese started sailing around the world, geography changed. The railroad 200 years ago changed geography. Well, the Chinese are now changing geography. This is an unbelievably important and exciting thing. Some people are going to make vast fortunes. Some are going to disappear.
So as an investor, how do you see it? Okay, the One Belt, One Road, it's a huge infrastructure play. You are the macro guy. What do you, when you drill down and you're like, okay, I want to be a part of this. I want my money working here. How do you approach that? What do you look at? Give people a look insight into your process.
Well, I own some, obviously, people who build railroads and have trains are going to do well because most of it's going to be on the railroad. That's one way to play. I own some Chinese railway companies. But you look at a map. It's going to go through Kazakhstan. Well, something's going to change in Kazakhstan. All the places where the trains are going to change dramatically. You've heard of Denver, Colorado? Denver wouldn't exist if geography hadn't changed and they hadn't put in the railroad. That's going to happen throughout Eurasia, and it's going to have gigantic changes.
We're in Las Vegas. I was fascinated to learn that Las Vegas grew up in part because of the atomic bomb testing that took place nearby. And you come to Vegas, you can watch the mushroom clouds. It was part of the entertainment.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
All right, so moving right along. So you have been vocal recently that you are looking for some market turbulence and some, what do you
Max,
think?
every 4 to 8 years since the beginning of the Republic, we've had problems in the U.S. economy. It always has happened. I don't know why, it doesn't matter, it always happens, and it always will. Now, Janet Yellen, the head of the Federal Reserve in America, says it's not going to happen anymore. Everything is solved now. Well, if you take your advice from her, you will think I'm wrong. But my view is it's been over 8 years since we had our last turmoil in America. It's coming again. There are many reasons it's coming again. And then next time is going to be worse than anything in my lifetime, because in 2008 we had a problem. because of too much debt. Max, since 2008, the debt has gone through the roof all over the world. So the next time we have a problem, and we're going to have one, unless you believe Janet Yellen, it's going to be very, very bad. It's not going to be
the Federal
fun.
Reserve Bank, it's supposed to be the lender of last resort, not the buyer of first order, right? They buy stuff.
They buy stuff, and they have said that they can buy anything. They can buy gold mines, they can buy stocks, they can do whatever they want.
That's
they buy liquor stores. Who knows what they'll do to save us?
But that's a repudiation of their mandate in the strongest sense. They are become a rogue element in the economy. They're undermining the economy. They're dangerous, Jim.
You've just noticed that things are going wrong in Washington, D.C.? Max, why don't you watch your show, for goodness sakes? Yes, things are going wrong in Washington, D.C. in many ways.
Well, let's talk about Jamie Dimon for a second over there at J.P. Morgan. You know, he said recently he's ashamed to be American because of the current administration and what's going on in America. You're a world traveler. He says when he travels, this is the sentiment people have. Is this a common theme out there? What do you think of his comments? We love to bash Jamie on this show because we think he's a charlatan and a crook.
Well, okay,
but I don't want to put words.
I will tell you that everywhere I go, people are very perplexed. I've told you that America's pushing the Chinese and the Russians together. They're pushing the Iranians and the Chinese together. Everybody sits there and says, what are they doing? Why are they hurting themselves? Now, Washington may not know they're hurting themselves, but everybody sees what's happening, what's going on, and everybody's perplexed. I'm perplexed, and I'm an American. I don't particularly like it that they're pushing the Russians and the Chinese and the Persians together. That's not going to help us. That's going to hurt us. And recently, Mr. Trump threw missiles at Syria. People went and said, why did he do that? The reason he gave turned out not to be legitimate. He dropped a huge bomb in Afghanistan. The BBC went over there afterwards and said, what he said didn't happen. You know, they sent their own reporters to check. Recently, he went to Saudi Arabia and he said, you can boycott Qatar if you want to. He didn't know that America's largest base in the Middle East is in Qatar. So what are we going to do, have Americans fighting Americans over things that are happening? I mean, this is all happening. I don't particularly like saying it.
So as an investor, you look at the risk-reward profile, you would say the risks of something going wrong are pretty high.
I told you, we're going to have very, very serious problems in the world in the next couple of years. You should be worried. You should watch TV.
All right, Jim Rogers, I got to watch more of my show.